Last week, there was a lot of discussion about some dubia, which are some doubts that a Brazilian bishop sent to Rome and which Cardinal Fernandez responded to and which the Pope has approved. And I just thought I'd walk people through the first question in this dubia so that people can just understand the nuance, what was said and what was not said, and the implications for this in the pastoral field of the church going forward. Because I don't think people fully grasped what has happened, and it's not black and white. This issue is a little bit more complex than some people understand. And the first thing I want to just clarify here, this is a discussion, clarification I'm having. It's not like we hate any particular group or person in the church. Everybody is created in the likeness and image of God and has the right to know the truth. I mean, if we look at the Catechism 2483, by injuring a man's relationship to truth and to his neighbor, a lie offends the fundamental relationship of man and his word to the Lord. So, we have to bring, we always have to keep in mind, we have to bring souls to know what the truth is. And the truth is one, it's not subjective. And if we're not presenting the truth in charity to people, then what are we doing in the church? Our mission is to bring people to the truth. It may take a couple of years, but it is our mission. So I just wanted to go through the first question. I'm going to take the Italian text. That's the text that was quoted in the English media, the link. I speak Italian. I'm just going to go sentence by sentence and explaining what Cardinal Fernandez has said and some of the implications for the church, which are wide-ranging, which people may not realize. And this is why there is such a heated debate. And it's not to attack the magisterium of the church, not to attack the cardinal or the pope or anything like this. It's just so that people understand what has happened and why this is significant and where this could branch out into other areas in the church. Anyway, let me take you through this first question of the dubia, line by line, what the cardinal said, and to really, this is to create a discussion. And I'm sure others will jump in, and so that the church can reflect on what they're actually doing. So we're just going to go through the first of the questions that is a response to Monsignor Negri in Brazil. And I just wanted to focus specifically on this question. And again, this is a discussion. It's not we hate anybody and thinking, Robert, you're very biased and you have an agenda and blah, 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 blah. No, this is as we have in catechism, as I said, in the catechism in 2483, we need to be careful that we don't injure anybody's relationship to the truth. And so that's the premise I'm going to start here. We have to be careful, always careful, that we never injure somebody's relationship to the truth, and everything we do. And it's not easy sometimes, but I just want to take you through this. So the first question is, un transessuale può essere battezzato? A transsexual can be baptized, ? Or can a transsexual be baptized? It's very interesting how this question is even posed. So let's look at the question to start off with. And let's go back to the perennial teaching of the Catholic Church. Everybody can be baptized. Everybody can be baptized. And the bishop knew this. Everybody can be baptized. So a transsexual, as it's termed today, what is a transsexual, or who is a transsexual? Well, in today's world, a transsexual is somebody who identifies as the opposite sex. So they do not believe that they were born a man or a woman. They believe that they were born in the wrong body. So that is what we're talking about. And again, we're not here as being anti this or we're just talking about this concept, which is boomed in the world in the last decade, especially among girls. In England, we have 7,000 kids alone on waiting lists looking for help with this phenomenon, which has boomed here. And the church has now brought this into a church environment in trying to deal with it. Why is this question posed, and why was it posed in the synod? Well, in the synod, there was a case that was spoken about. I believe it was a Polish transsexual who went to Poland, went into confession and didn't get absolution and took their life. This is the story that's come out of the synod. And on the base of that, you often hear the Pope saying, always pardon in confession. The Pope has said this several times, always pardon. And you'll see this, what the Pope has been saying, coming through in the answer in this first document. So it's really important. And there's it's nuanced, the reply that Cardinal Fernandez has given. So we'll walk you through this. So, un transessuale può essere battezzato? ? Can a transsexual be baptized? Un transessuale, a transsexual, che fosse anche sottoposto al trattamento ormonale e ad intervento chirurgico di restituzione di sesso, so a transsexual who has undergone hormonal treatment and has undergone a surgery to change their sex, può ricevere il battesimo, can receive the baptism under the same conditions as all other faithful, alla medesima condizione degli altri fedeli, se non vi sono situazioni in cui c'è un rischio, if there is not situations in which there is a risk di generare pubblico scandalo, to generate public scandal, or disorientamento nei fedeli, or disorientant of the faithful, disorientamento. Nel caso dei bambini e adolescenti, in the case of children and teenagers con problematiche di natura transenziale, with the problem of the transsexual nature, se ben preparati e disposti, if they are well prepared and disposed, these can receive baptism. Okay, so we're going to go back here to the very start of this small paragraph. Can a transsexual receive baptism? The question is, can a man or a woman be baptized? Yes, any man or any woman can be baptized, even if you've undergone hormonal treatment, even if you've had surgery in the past, you can receive baptism. So why is there any debate here in the church? Because surely this is perfectly fine, everything is written here. Well, the change here, the pastoral change, and this will confront priests, is the pastoral change is that, for example, I'm John. I was born a man, baptized. Not baptized, but I have a birth cert which says my name is John. John Smith, born John Smith, and I'm 30 years old, and I've gone through hormonal treatment and surgery, and I'm now Suzanne Smith. So Suzanne Smith now goes to, has a conversion and goes to the priest and say, look, I would like to be baptized. And I've lived as Suzanne Smith for the last 15 years. And this is my new identity, and identify as a woman. I am a transsexual Catholic woman. And the priest, under these new guidelines, says, well, yeah, I can baptize you. What does this actually mean? This means that Suzanne Smith, her new identity, a now woman who was born a man, will be baptized under her new gender. This is what we're reading here. This is, I'm not joking you, and we'll see it as it goes through the response here. That is the change. We don't have to say to Suzanne Smith, "So, yeah, of course you can be baptized. Please put on your suit and tie and come. We'll go through RCIA, and you'll be baptized at the end of this process as your original name, John Smith." No, no. This is the change, that those who identify as transsexuals now will be baptized in their new preferred gender, dressed. So you will have a man dressed as a woman or a woman dressed as a man who will come and receive baptism. This is the change. This is what has happened. Go on to the next paragraph. Nel contratempo, in the meantime, occorre considerare quanto segue. It is, you have to consider what is below. Specialmente quando vi sono dei dubbi sulla situazione morale oggettiva, especially when there is doubts on the objective moral situation in cui si trova una persona, in which a person finds itself, oppure sulla sua disposizione soggettiva verso la grazia, or with their subjective dispositions towards grace. I mean, and this is really, really, really important. This is really important, and this is why there's a lot of debate, because they're posing a pastoral problem that needs a solution, and they're giving the reasons. It's not just and these are very interesting reasons, because our faith hinges on how this is rolled out in the church, because it's not just, can a transsexual be baptized, who can receive forgiveness in confession. Sin is, sin could be, something could be sinful for one person, not for the other. There's a whole area here that is very interesting. So we'll just continue on reading here. Nel caso del battesimo, in the case of baptism, la Chiesa insegna che, the church teaches that, quando il sacramento viene ricevuto, when the sacrament is received, senza il pentimento per I peccati gravi, without repenting of grave sin, il soggetto non riceve la grazia sanctificante. The person, the subject, does not receive sanctifying grace, sebbene riceve il carattere sacramentale. But does receive the sacramental character, which is true. If somebody has water and intention and says, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, in doing what the church intends to do, but the subject is just doing, for example, somebody is just getting baptized to get enrolled into a Catholic school, getting their kids baptized, and they don't really understand the faith, but they want their kids in a Catholic school, and they go and get baptized. Do they really understand the sacrament that they've received? Have they received the sanctifying grace from the sacrament? Maybe not, but they have received the sacramental character. Il catechismo afferma, the catechism affirms, questa configurazione a Cristo e alla Chiesa, this configuration to Christ and the Church, realizzata dallo Spirito, realized by the Spirit, è indelibile, is indelible. Essa rimane per sempre nel cristiano come disposizione positiva alla grazia. So this remains forever in the Christian as a disposition towards grace, come promessa e garanzia della protezione divina, as a promise and a guarantee of divine protection, e come vocazione al culto divino e al servizio della Chiesa, and as a vocation to divine cult and service of the Church. And that is a quote from Catechism of the Catholic Church 1121. So, okay. Now, okay, so we'll just continue on here. San Tommaso d'Aquino, St. Thomas Aquinas insegnava, taught, infatti, che quando l'impedimento alla grazia scompare. So here we're quoting St. Thomas of Aquinas, which is true, and he has taught that when the impediment, the block of grace, towards grace, disappears. So we have a block towards grace that disappears in qualcuno che ha ricevuto il battesimo, in somebody who has received baptism without the just dispositions, senza le giuste disposizioni. Why are we even mentioning without just dispositions? Because we go up to the very top. The church is proposing a solution to people who do not have just dispositions, that don't have the right disposition to baptism. We are going to baptize a man who is now dressed as a woman, who identifies as a woman, and who calls herself a transsexual woman. We are now going to give them baptism under their new gender in the church. This is what is being approved here, and this is the theological reasoning. So we're going to give baptism to somebody who does not have some just dispositions, because if we go up here, we're talking about we have to consider this, especially when there is doubts about the moral situation in which a person finds himself. So anyway, I go on, and so we're talking about Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas taught, in fact, that when an impediment against grace disappears in somebody who has received baptism without just dispositions, il carattere stesso, the same character, è una causa immediata che dispone ad accogliere la grazia, is a immediate cause in which the person can receive grace. And that is quoted from St. Thomas of Aquinas. Let me see here. Summa Theologia. San Agostino di Ippona, Saint Augustine, richiamava questa situazione dicendo che, Saint Augustine recalled these situations, saying that even if a man falls in sin, Christ does not destroy the character received from this person in baptism. E cerca and looks for the sinner. And nel quale è impresso questo carattere che lo identifica come sua proprietà, in which this character has been impressed and he identifies as his property. And this is from the sermon to the Ecclesia Cesarensis, Ecclesia Plebem, to the ecclesiastical people. Okay, so we've quoted here St. Thomas Aquinas, and this theologically is true. This is theology. If you're baptized and you sin, and then you confess and you come back to God, of course, what is being said here is true. Like it's not like Fernandez is quoting something, but let's be clear. We have not disposed these people to actually to understand the truth when they're being baptized, especially in adult. So così possiamo comprendere perché Papa Francesco. So now we can understand why Pope Francis ha voluto sottolineare, has wanted to underline, che il battesimo, that baptism, è la porta che permette al Signore, a Cristo Signore, di stabilirsi nella nostra persona e a noi di immergerci nel suo misterio. So it is a door in which our Lord Jesus Christ establishes himself in our person, and in which we can immergerci immerse ourselves in his mystery. And that's a quote from 2018 in the general audience. Questo implica concretamente che, this implies concretely that nemmeno le porte del sacramento si dovrebbero chiudere per una ragione qualsiasi, that there should never be that doors should never be closed to the sacraments for any reason. For any reason. We should never close the doors to the sacraments for any reason. The exact word is ragione qualsiasi, for any reason. Questo vale soprattutto quando si tratta di quel sacramento che è la porta, il battesimo. And this, we are talking about the sacrament, which is the door, which is baptism. La Chiesa non è una dogana, so the church is not a customs stop between, where you get checked. È una casa paterna, it is a paternal house dove c'è posto per ciascuno con la sua vita faticosa. So the church is the Father's house where there is a place for everybody with their difficulty life, faticosa vita. That's from Evangelii Gaudium, which is true. We can understand, but we have always taught that if somebody wants to be baptized, you would go through you would go through in being taught the faith, aligning our lives to the faith, living the faith. And now we will have somebody who will come to get baptized and say, well, I was born a man, but I now identify as a woman, and I believe that this is how I'm supposed to live my life. And I believe that other people should be able to have surgery and should be able to have hormonal treatment, which is, the logic behind this can really could tear down the fabric of the church. Could, because if we look forward, say 50, 100 years, what happens when we have a transhuman? So what happens when they incorporate, which could happen? Look where we are. We incorporate animal DNA or other things into our electronics or transhumanism. This is where we're heading. How will the church manage this? But anyway, I digress. Allora, anche quando rimangono dei dubbi circa la situazione morale oggettiva, so even when there remains doubts around the objective moral situation di una persona, of a person, oppure sulle sue soggettive disposizioni nei confronti della grazia, or when there is doubts about the subjective disposition, which in regards to grace, non si deve mai dimenticare questo aspetto della fedeltà, dell'amore incondizionato di Dio. You should never forget this aspect of the fidelity, of love, of the unconditional love of God, capace di generare anche col peccatore un'alleanza irrevocabile, capable of generating with the sinner a irrevocable alliance, sempre aperto ad un sviluppo, always open to development, altresì imprevedibile, that may be unseen or that we can't see or can't foresee. Ciò vale persino quando nel penitente non appare in modo pienamente manifesto un proposito di ammendamento. And this also in a sinner, a penitent, who does not have full manifest proposal to amend their life. So somebody, well, I suppose we go back to the very top. We have Mary Smith that arrives to be baptized, dressed as Mary Smith, but was born John Smith, and now Mary Smith is going to be baptized, and they are not pienamente manifest. They have not wholly manifested the proposal to amend, perché spesso la prevedibilità di una nuova caduta, and there is many times a provision of a new fall. Non giudica l'autenticità del, don't judge the authenticity of the proposite. And let me see, where is this down there? This is John Paul II to a letter to Cardinal William Baum on the occasion of the course on the interior forum of confession in 1996. I understand. And again, you can read this in various ways. In every case, in ogni caso, la Chiesa dovrà sempre rimanere a vivere pienamente tutte le implicazioni del battesimo ricevuto. In every case, the Church should always recall or call to live fully all the implications of the baptism received, che va sempre compreso e dispiegato all'interno dell'interno cammino di iscrizione cristiana, and can always be comprised and dispiegato. I don't know this word. I have to look up this word. So in every case, the Church has to always call to live fully all the implications of baptism received, which always comprises and deploys in the internal cammino di iscrizione cristiana, and dall'intero cammino, on the entire way of of Christian initiation. Okay, so that's some of the reasoning that Cardinal Fernandez has given for allowing people who identify with their new sex, so a man born a woman or a woman born a man, who will come to ask to be baptized. Can they be baptized in their new gender? That they'll come to church dressed as a woman. Because, to be clear, if somebody has gone through hormonal treatment and surgery in the past and wants to get baptized, of course you could be baptized, but you align yourself to the truth that you were born a man or woman, and you come and get baptized. You believe in the teaching of the Catholic Church. And now the Pope is saying, Cardinal Fernandez is saying, look, you don't, we understand your situation, and look, if you want to continue to identify yourself with your new gender, so this is transsexual, if you want to continue to remain with your new gender, you can be baptized now. Now, this is the what Cardinal Fernandez has said, and this is the storm that has been created in the Church. And we've seen it played out in several homilies that Pope Francis asking always forgive to priests, always forgive, and this was played out in the synod. There was a transsexual seemingly in Poland that went to confession, and the priest didn't forgive the person, didn't give them absolution, and they committed suicide. This was the specific story that's come out in the synod. And yeah, this is going to create a lot of debate, because as I said, if somebody comes looking for the truth, Um, by injuring a man's relation to truth and his neighbor, a lie offends against the fundamental relationship of God and his word to the Lord. So my thought on it when I was reading this, are we injuring somebody's relationship to the truth by what we're doing now in the church? Are we injuring somebody? You know, when the young man came to our Lord and says, what do I need to do to be perfect? And in all of this. And then our Lord says, well, if you want to be really perfect, sell everything and come follow me. And the man went away sad. The man went away sad. And Christ didn't run after him and said, well, sorry, don't sell everything. Just sell half of it. Come work for me part-time. And we need to bring people to the truth with charity, which we have been doing for 2,000 years, bringing people to the truth. And I can understand the theological reasoning here. Well, look, we're going to give them baptism, and someday they might understand this. And when it was in the document, when the obstacle to grace is removed, then the sanctifying grace will be realized, because they've actually mentioned it here. I'm just going to they've actually mentioned it in the document. This is why it's interesting what the Vatican is doing. I've never seen this before. You know, they're talking about obstacles to sanctifying grace. It says it here. So if the subject non riceva la grazia santificante, if the subject does not receive the sanctifying grace, so yeah, even if they do receive baptism, so we're saying, okay, we know you're not going to receive, or are we saying to these people, we know you're not going to receive sanctifying grace because you're not disposed properly here. We objectively see, oh no, you're not disposed for this to receive baptism. We know that you're not disposed, but we're going to give you baptism anyway, so that someday when you are disposed to the sanctifying grace of the sacrament, then it will work in you. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting, and as I said, I'm not a theologian, so somebody can step in here, but I'm able to read through the document, and I'm able to pose the questions. If I was a priest and somebody comes and they want sacraments, I mean, this same logic we can use for everything that is happening. So we can say somebody that has been remarried, you know, somebody that has been married before, can they receive the sacrament of matrimony again? You know, somebody that has, say a man that, and I've seen this played out, you know, a man has a problem with porn, you know, he keeps falling into the same sin, and he goes to a priest, and the priest said, look, you have just got a habit. It's not really a sin. You're not objectively committing any sin, so you don't need to confess this all the time. So don't come back here every 2 weeks for confession. Just try your best type of thing. And this happens in the church. This actually happens in the church. So we break that person's connection to the truth. They have a right to know what is true. You know, they have that person who is searching for the truth, that the Holy Spirit has worked with them, has a right to know what is true. Now, it could take years to overcome habits that are ingrained in us, you know, especially if people have gone through abuse and they've suffered in life, and there's lots of different layers on people. Of course, we understood this, but this is the work in progress. This is the path of sanctification. We offer people the truth. Here's it. This is the truth. You know, you were born a man or a woman. We believe that as Catholics is the truth. Our present world doesn't believe that. It believes gender is a different thing. Okay, so we have now stepped back and say, well, look, whatever the present world is pushing on the church, we have said, well, look, we can't offer you the truth anymore in a clear way. so we're going to go down and with this place, we're going to give you the sacrament, and we know that you're not disposed to sanctifying grace, because it says it there in the document. It says it there. If the subject does not receive sanctifying grace. So you're going to give, the church knows that they're giving a sacrament to somebody who may not receive sanctifying grace from that sacrament. They will receive the sacramental character in the case of baptism. So this is, wow, especially for an adult. We break the connection to the truth. We may break, and this is where the whole debate will move out in the church, and it's in that sphere. I do ask people, if somebody asks me what is the truth, I'd want to catechize them and bring them into to know, okay, this is the truth. It's not Robert Nugent here, and that's really important. It's not Robert Nugent here. It's not my opinion. What is the truth we need to align our life to? And as men, I say this, okay, what is the truth you as a man need to align your life to? Is it fine to have an affair? No. Is it fine to do other things? No. What is the truth we need to search for? St. Augustine, it's very interesting they quote St. Augustine, because what was it they were looking for here, or what was the other quote here? Looking for the truth. Que cos'è la verità? When Christ was brought to be crucified, in front of Pilate, what is the truth? And that has to be the question. Okay, we can be so merciful. We will never lead people to the truth, and we have now left aside the truth that we need to pose to this world, and that's why there is a massive amount of debate in the church. And again, we don't hate anybody. We're all sinners. We are all sinners. We have a duty in charity to give people the truth. We have a duty in charity. And a lot of priests are going to wonder, well, now I have to align with this, with what Cardinal Fernandez is saying. So if somebody comes to me, Mary Smith comes to me, and 30-year-old Mary Smith comes to me and says, well, look, I want to come to church and I want to be baptized. Well, Mary Smith, who was born John Smith, but now dresses as Mary Smith and is on hormone treatment and identifies as Mary Smith, can receive baptism now, and they can continue to take her hormonal treatment and continue to identify as Mary Smith and continue to push gender ideology into the church, because this is what will happen. As I said, there is 9,000 children on gender reassignment waiting list in the UK. This phenomenon, which was unheard of 50 years ago, is now colossal. And now the church, in theory, can baptize this. And we don't. And how are we going to teach people the truth? That is the question. I mean, as a layman that doesn't have a degree in theology, if I was a priest, I would wonder, okay, how do we incorporate this into our pastoral care? Do we not have a duty to teach and preach the truth to somebody? Do we not? Or are we just going to say, look, I know this person that wants to be baptized is not going to receive sanctifying grace because they have a block, objective block. I can see an objective block to them receiving sanctifying grace, but we're going to give them the sacramental character. And when someday they come to realize that they're living in error, they'll receive the graces. That person might come back 30 years later. Why didn't you tell me the truth? And might turn to the church and say, why didn't you tell me the truth? Because there's so many in the transsexual movement now that have gone through hormonal treatment and surgery, and they've gone through it, and then they've detransitioned. And the detransitioned transsexuals, and you have J.K. Rowling talking about this, they are furious. They are furious that they were sold a lie. And this is, people are forgetting this. We could, baptize, and they could come back 20, 30 years. Why didn't you tell me the truth that I was born a man or a woman? Why didn't you give me the truth? Why didn't you just say no? Sorry, until you identify with the sex you were born with, sorry, we can't baptize you, which is what previous doubts clarified as. And a lot of bishops got a lot of flack for this. Why didn't you give us the truth? Cardinal Fernandez, I asked the same question. Why aren't you giving people the truth? And it's hard sometimes to give people the truth. But that is what we're called to do. And I ask bishops, why are you not giving people the truth? Which sometimes is not easy. You are born a man or a woman. And that is what we believe as Catholics. And yet now we're saying, okay, in this situation, and even though we know objectively you have an impediment, we're going to give you the baptism. And when someday you realize that you're living in your delusion, this is what's being said in the question. In effect, you can read into this. We know you're living a delusion. We know that there is an objective moral situation in which this person finds itself. That's what's written there. So we know that you're living in your delusion. We know that this is the thing that you believe. We're just going to give you the sacrament. And when this impedimental is removed, then you will be baptized, and then you will receive sanctifying grace. I mean, please, mind-boggling. Let me know what you think in the discussion. And I suppose I just want to, if in the secular world we have people screaming at this movement saying, why didn't you give us the truth? Why don't we do it in the church? Because these people will come back to us and say, why didn't you give us the truth? Why didn't you give me the truth? And this is what I say to priests. Why aren't you giving people the truth? To bishops, why aren't you giving people the truth? I don't know. Pray for the church. God bless.